Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again on the Sedona Connection. Welcome to our January 25th program. It's 6 p.m. on the West Coast. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and it's 7 p.m. here in my home in Sedona, Arizona. Well, I want to just say thank you to everybody for the absolute, wonderful weekend I had in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for what we had there for the workshop over the weekend, and then we also ended up having an absolutely wonderful kind of a potluck at some folks' home on Sunday night. That went absolutely wonderful. I got home late last night, and then after I got home, I had Mr. M came over to my home here and gave me an update of some of the stuff that's going on. So I'm going to be sharing with you in just a minute. But it's nice to be back, and it was a little different because, this morning I woke up to about a half of inch of snow on the ground here in Sedona. And we get snow maybe 2 or 3 times a year, but it never lasts very long. And by the afternoon, almost all of it was gone. The roads were back and bare and dry and all that kind of stuff. But it looks nice for a few hours. And that's about all it is. So, okay. But other than that, all is well. And again, I always want to just say thank you for all the support because, the accident that I had a couple weeks ago. I'm recovering fine. Everything is fine. I'm still just a little bit tired at times now and then. But, I think it's funny. I think I told you I have absolutely no memories at all. It's like there's about 8 to 9 hours in there. I cannot remember anything. So as far as I know in my memories, the accident never happened at all. And, but I've had some other things going on that seem to be very positive. And I think that whole accident was kind of a blessing in disguise. So, but with that, Blanca, how are you doing tonight? And welcome once again to the program.
Hello, Dave. I'm doing terrific, and it's interesting that you had snow. We actually had 70-degree weather over here, if you can believe that, in January. And so people were out walking their dogs and jogging, and but during the latter part of the week, it's supposed to get colder again. But we enjoyed today, so that was nice.
We're normally running high 50s, low 60s here at this time of the year, and today the high was only around 42. So it's a cold time of the year for us. But where I was there in Dallas-Fort Worth, it was 70 over the weekend. So it was really nice weather there. So so I left 70 degrees and came to about 40 degrees here in Sedona. And so, but all's well. I love my home here, and I'm doing just fine because we're supposed to have nothing but sunshine for the next 2 weeks. So, yeah.
Well, that's good, and it's good to hear that you did well in the workshop. Bravo, bravo. As I mentioned, you're sounding a little more energetic today, so I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. So all of that is very good news.
Yeah, well, learning to pace myself. I've gotten a lot of input from a lot of good professional medical experts, and they just said, what I'm going through is just very, very normal. It's kind of like your body kind of recalibrates. And so it has to readjust itself, right. And you're getting adjusted to, kind of the shifts and changes that basically, from a head concussion, because your brain gets shaken up, and so it has to recalibrate itself, and your body recalibrates itself. But other than that, I don't see the accident as any problem. I'm not at liberty to go into all the details right now, but I think it was a blessing in disguise, and I'm doing fine, enjoying myself. The workshop was great. I always enjoy the workshops because it's always wonderful to be with the people live, and then it's always good to be back on the program here. So yeah. Well, anything else you want to share with us?
No, I think that's very good, and I'm sure seeing the folks energized you, and I'm sure many of the listeners are sending you good wishes and all, and so we'll just continue doing that for you and hope that you take care of yourself. But it sounds like you've got some pretty interesting things going on that you wanted to share with the folks, so I'm ready to hear all the updates.
Yes, I do. I won't be talking a lot tonight or going into a lot of depth, but I've got some really kind of, for me personally, is some very interesting news. and I'll get into that here in just a minute. But let me start out. First of all, I've been saying, for almost a couple months, don't expect anything to happen after the inauguration. Well, here we are. We're after the inauguration, and some of you are wondering, well, is anything happening? What's going on? It's important to know that this whole RVGCR is not the top item on the president's agenda. It's basically, I would say, kind of on the lower end of the agenda by what I'm being told. Now, most of you remember the man I had, I think it was 4 weeks ago, was Mr. M. Mr. M will be back with us next week. He is going to be able to go into far more detail about a lot of this stuff that I'm going to talk to you about in the next few minutes, because it's his field, and I have to be careful that I don't preempt him or that I don't say things because of security and confidentiality issues. But as you know, Mr. M is a part of a team of 5 different people. The majority of them are in Asia. Mr. M is a gentleman who his father had worked extensively in IT and computer programming. He was one of the first people that wrote programs for the CIA, the FBI, and I think it was the NSA, and he also wrote programs for the Federal Reserve and the IRS. And his son, Mr. M, he picked that up from him and learned it himself. And Mr. M actually himself went through a time of working with the different government agencies. He had worked inside the Pentagon, and I didn't know this until last night when I had to clarify this with him. You can check and see his records that he was actually employed by the CIA for 7 years. And he had one of the highest security clearances within the CIA when he was with them. So he's got very, very good in-depth contacts. He's in touch with the right, correct people around the world who are going to be funding most of this stuff. And he talked about his team, and on that team, I'm going to use one specific name, and that's going to be Mr. C. Now, again, confidentiality, I can't tell you his full name. No, I should say Mr. S. I should say Mr. S. Mr. M and Mr. S are very, very good friends. They've known each other for some period of time. And just the morning that I was getting ready to go on the flight to go to Dallas, Fort Worth, Mr. M gave me a call, and he said, Dave, you wouldn't believe what happened, but Mr. C has just been in a conversation with a gentleman that I'm going to call Mr. H. Mr. H is not a part of the team, but he is an associate, and Mr. C works a lot with Mr. H, and Mr. H is also he's the administrator and the primary signer on another very large trust. And he said, Dave, Mr. H has been a personal friend with President Trump for over 20 years. Mr. H met with Mr. Trump, the president, about a week before the inauguration, and it was when the president had that big party at his home in southern Florida, and Mr. H was able to be there at the party, but while there, they had a separate meeting. And Mr. H and the president basically were discussing the president's plans to make the transition to a gold standard. And Mr. H is one of them that's going to be intimately involved in that work that's going to go on behind the scenes in making the transition to the gold standard. And he shared that with me, and it was quite interesting. And he said that Mr. H and Mr. S had some extensive conversations. They are acquaintances with each other. They're both doing the same things. And they had realized that it was important for them to come together to work on a team during this transition into the gold standard. So Mr. M and, Mr. C's, I should say S's team are going to be working with Mr. H. Well, that happened, and then I had, my weekend involvement, at the workshop and everything, and I get home last night, and Mr. M comes over to my house, and he said, I've got some news for you that's going to be very exciting, and you're going to absolutely love this. He says, as we are now starting to work in a team with Mr. H is in the process of setting up another meeting with the president. And he said, we have all been invited to go, and Dave, we want you to come with us. So other than that, I don't know all the details, but all I know is that I'm getting to be a part of the team that we are going to go and meet with the president about talking about the details of how they're going to work out the transition to the gold standard. Now, I'm telling you that as it's being told to me from the people that I just referred to you. I would tell you their first full names if I could, but for confidentiality reasons, I can't. But what Mr. M had said is that Mr. H was not the only one that had met with the president. There was another individual that they both know that had met with the president as well. So there were two different individuals about a week before the inauguration that they both met with the president and are talking about the transition to the gold standard. It is something that the president is absolutely committed to. I am not able to give you all of the details of that because it's confidential, but what I can tell you is that they're going to be bringing in a lot of gold from Asia. And part of the discussion is the transportation and the logistics of that. And what I can tell you is I have a personal acquaintance with the individual who the Trump administration had asked to transport the gold. And we talked about that over the weekend. And that individual basically had said, it's something that I personally cannot take on right now, but I'm going to refer you to my friend. And then supposedly his friend has been meeting with some of the folks in the Trump administration today about bringing this gold in from outside of the United States that's going to help us set us up on the gold standard. And that basically means that in the process, it's probably what the Trump administration is wanting to do, and that's basically say goodbye to the Federal Reserve. We don't need you anymore. We're going to return to a gold standard. And the Federal Reserve isn't going to be issuing these fiat currencies anymore. And as you know, myself and others, for a couple of years, we've been talking about the importance that is what is necessary for us to make this transition to basically having a new, what is called the whole RVGCR process. Now, I also want to share a few things with you about my conversation that I had last night with Mr. S. We hear a lot of talk about the elders. We hear a lot of talk about the M1. We hear a lot of talk about the grandfather. We hear a lot of talk about his nickname as Papa. Mr. S works directly with the M1 grandfather Papa. And he gave me some of the details last night. And I have to be very careful about what I say. I'm not at liberty to go into those details. But what I can say is that Mr. M may be able to cover that more next week because that's his area and he can be a little more careful about what can be shared and what cannot. But what I can say is if you've got currencies, it's really in your best interest to really know who's paying for it, who's the source of the money, who's the source of the funds. Myself, Mr. M, Mr. S, and the individual that we are aware of that will be transporting this gold, and also Mr. H and some of the others, they've all been very, very clear about the fact that this may not turn out as what most people think. And you better know who's funding, because it all comes down to one key primary thing. Somebody's got to put up the money. And I have said for, about a year now, there are three primary sources of these funds. The elders, the dragon families, and these three very large trusts. But underneath those three trusts are also some smaller subsidiary trusts, but in many ways they're connected to the three large trusts. They're your funding sources. Some of those funding sources are 100% benevolent, and some of them have cabal in them. And so that brings up the possibility that some of you may think that you're in touch with a good funding source, but it may be a cabal source. And what does that mean? Well, it means it may not turn out exactly what you think and I think it has always been, or what we've been told that it's going to be. I can tell you all of my funding sources are absolute benevolent sources. And the key is, do they talk about project funding versus individuals getting a lot of money? And I can tell you the sources that I'm in touch with, they're not here in the kingmaker business. They're not here to make individuals become rich and wealthy. They're not here to turn individuals into billionaires or multi-billionaires. And they have said this is first and foremost always been about funding projects compensated and rewarded for participating in that process. But the first and primary focus is always, always, always been project funding. And if what you're listening to and what you're watching and what you're paying attention, if they're not talking about it in that manner, then you might want to really start watching what's going on and be paying attention to the funding source, because it appears it's the cabal sources aren't talking about projects very much. And with them, most of it are under the impression they're going to get 100% of the money. And to me, that's called the kingmaker business. Well, I can tell you one thing, and this is just my opinion. But if they're in the business of making kings, don't you think they're in the business of controlling the kings as well? And so everybody gets to determine on their own what that means to them. I am not going to go into any more details than that. I can't say that I know everything 100%. I am sharing with you what is coming from some of my sources. But the key is, are they talking about project funding first and foremost? Are they talking about shifting and changing this world first and foremost? Are they talking about bringing economic equality to everybody all around the world first and foremost? Because when you do that, you're pretty much eliminating wars and you're not in the kingmaker business. And I think that's the key that you need to be watching for and looking for in all of this process. Wow. Let's see. And it's extremely important in this process that we allow things to unfold. Now, I want to talk about a post that came out today from a gentleman who went by the name Over and Out. There's been some controversial around the post that he had put out today. I'm just going to give you my opinion. In my opinion, I'm lining up with most of what he had to say. It's back to, you got to know who your funding source is. You got to know where the money's coming from. And you need to be aware of what's developing out there with all of that and how all that is taking place. Now, I was going to read this email, but what I just accidentally did is that I accidentally closed the window down, and I got to bring it back up. So hold on just a second, folks. But he's basically saying that the term that has been used is what is called for the internet groups. And the internet groups, for the most part, are those that already have an association, in essence, with what he calls a ringleader with what I am referring to as the private contracts. And he says that these are the people that, for the most part, they've already turned in their currencies. And he is saying that if you haven't already turned your currencies in to a quote, a ringleader, and quote, or you could use the term, if you haven't already turned your currencies into basically an aggregate collector, a person who is conducting a private exchange for you. And if you haven't done that, then he is basically saying then you need to be aware of the fact that you're going to be put into what is called the public group. And you're going to be a part of the public exchange, and you're not going to be a part of the larger, higher rate private exchanges. And I was saying that a couple months ago, and I'm not here to argue and debate and fight with the others. I'm not here to get into, there's going to be differences of opinions on all this stuff. But what I am saying is, for your own sake, you might want to take a look at that and find out, where are you? Are you somebody who has already turned in your currencies and it is already being in the process of being processed, and you have probably gotten some SKRs in it? Then you're going to be into what he is defining as the internet groups. And he says if you haven't, then you're going to be into the public. And I've been stating for some time is that the public rates are going to be very low rates. Now, why am I saying that? Well, when I again was in my conversation with Mr. C last night, he was very clear about his information that was coming from the direct sources. And he said, there's only so much money that is out there. And I said that a couple months ago. There's only so much money that is out there that they are going to release into the public. You can only allow so much money to go out there at a time without basically blowing up, the world economy into a hyperinflation. Because you're talking about real money, real people, real asset-backed currencies through this whole process. And that means there's going to be a dollar for dollar accounting in this whole thing. And that's why I'm saying I'm in agreement with most of what he is saying. And he basically says is that if you are not in that, when you go in to process, in essence, if you're going to receive an 800 number, if you haven't turned your currencies in, you're going to be given an option of getting paid out at a lower rate, or you're going to be option of being paid out over a 50-year period of an extension. Now, the 50-year period of the contract is what allows, them to commit funds that they're not going to put into circulation right now. So that's where most of that is coming from, and that's kind of where I'm at. Blanca, I'm kind of coming to the end here of what I wanted to talk about in the introduction tonight, and I think I'm about ready to go ahead and go into some of the callers. So why don't you go ahead, and folks, if you have some...
Is that all right if I ask you a quick question?
Sure, yeah. Well, let me do this. Let me give the phone number first. The phone number is 515-605-9356. Again, if you have a comment or a question, the phone number is 515-605-9356, and then make sure you press 1 on your touch-tone phone, and that lets us know that you'd like to come on the air and either have a comment or a question. But yes, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thanks for the update. I don't know if I'm getting static in my audio. There were some times there when you were speaking where it was getting choppy. Is my audio sounding okay?
It might be the internet stream.
Okay.
Which means if it's the internet stream, it can be a little bit choppy when it's live. But my understanding is that when you do the recording, it comes out okay. Because I was getting some notices coming up on my computer that, your CPU usage was extremely high and your bandwidth, wasn't quite there. So it might be the internet stream that's creating that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Very good. Well, it wasn't totally to where we missed your message, but it was choppy there a little bit. So anyway, well, it's a very exciting report that that you may actually have the chance to meet Mr. T.
I know.
That's very exciting.
That would be something, I tell you. I've been around politics a long time. It's no big thing whether or not I meet the president. I've met presidents and had pictures with presidents, and so, but it's not so much about that as much as it is the importance of the mission.
Exactly. Well, but you probably haven't met the Mr. T.
No, that's true. I have not. Okay, I have not met. I have not met President Trump. And
oh yes, President T.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's for an exciting cause, and it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and with what looks like Trump is aiming to do, and it makes total sense that this infusion of money is to lift mankind, who has been under this kind of debt slavery for many years, in which we find ourselves in the situation that we're in. You may have noticed whenever you see pictures of Mr. Trump signing his executive orders at the Oval Office, the gold drapes behind.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah, I saw that.
Hello?
Yes, I saw that.
Oh, okay. And a lot of people were talking about that, so symbolic. And also, probably the New York Times reported that he has a portrait of Andrew Jackson in his office.
Huh. That's interesting,
which,
because...
of course, we know Andrew got rid of the central bank, was a big enemy of the bank.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, some people have kind of compared him to Andrew Jackson. He was the guy that came in, blazing guns and made shifts and changes and took control and
Right.
didn't care what people had to say. But then, that was at a point in time there wasn't much communication that went on around the country because, anything the newspapers put out were basically already a week behind, if not two months behind, because it took 2 months for information to get out to the western part of the United States versus the eastern, because, communication was
Right.
about as fast as the
Right.
horse would gallop, so.
Exactly, and you can tell if there's meaning in it because already I saw a couple of mentions in the mainstream, although I heard them call it fake stream news, but already complaining about Samuel Jackson. I mean Andrew Jackson, did genocide and all that. They're trying to, trash him. And
I know.
I thought, well, that's interesting. They're getting the message, obviously, if they're trying to trash Jackson.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's all good news. And that's the only thing I wanted to bring up to see if you'd seen that, because there's a lot of symbolism and I would say meta messages being put through to try to pierce through all the propaganda that is still being thrown at us. There's a little bit of daylight in the mainstream media, but still there's such an inundation of propaganda that I think Trump is trying to send messages for those who have eyes to see and understand, what's going on in terms of a shift.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear that he and CNN are getting into a war with each other, but I just think it's, they're beginning to show in some ways that mainstream media news is beginning to show that they're kind of irrelevant. The public is not dependent upon them for information anymore. And that they're basically having to compete with the alternate sources as well. And, the more that they attack, the more that they basically just show that they're stating opinions that are not being true journalists and reporting. And so...
Right. So that's going to be another interesting development because, of course, Facebook has banned certain what they call alternative fake news outlets. Of course, they haven't provided the names of who they've banned.
Yeah.
So that's all kind of very interesting. There's definitely a battle going on in that area, and we'll see. I mean, when you look at some of the protests that occurred before and after the inauguration, there's some people who do believe what they see on television and what they read, obviously, because, they've got some pretty interesting opinions of, what's going on. It's almost like there's two different populations in the nation, unfortunately, because there's such different points of view.
It's interesting. Mainstream media will periodically talk about the approval rating of Congress, and it's not very high. It's usually somewhere between about 12 and 18% is where it comes and goes in that area. And Congress has never had a high approval rating. But what they don't want to talk about is when the polls are done about the media's approval rating, it's not much higher than that of Congress. And anybody could come on and say, the polls show that you guys aren't doing much better than Congress, and they don't trust you. And so you can fight this battle all you want, but the more you try to fight it, the more they will just not trust you. And that's why alternate media sources are gaining ground, because they don't trust you. You can say whatever you want, justify whatever you want, make whatever excuses you can, defend all you want. But the bottom line is the public does not trust you. And so you can try to fight the president, and all you'll do is just show how much, that you're not trusted because you're not true journalists anymore. Right. You basically are opinion makers that is coming from the pressure above you from your publishers because of you want to have some good high ratings. So you sensationalize stuff or start fighting because you think it gives you higher ratings. And I think it's going to get to the point where, I remember saying on the election night that when I saw that Trump had won, I said, if you want to know who the real loser was in the election this year, it was the mainstream media. They were the real true loser in the election this year. And it's showing because the very fact that this discussion is even out there, it shows you how much credibility that they've lost. The fact that is even a discussion point. Yeah, so. Okay. Anything
That's
else?
going to be a very interesting development there. So, okay, did you want to take this first caller while I screen the rest? The
No.
415 caller? Or?
You can go ahead and scream in, and then I'll take a couple of the emails that come in. So, okay?
Oh, okay. Let's
All right.
go ahead and get
'Cause there's
okay.
just some general questions on some of the email stuff, so I'll just go into some of the emails while you're going and taking that first caller. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you. So, the first email I have here is from a gentleman. He says, can you explain what a sovereign is and means, and how does it relate to what a tier is and what it means? Sovereigns, folks, are generally countries. There are a few individuals that are classified as sovereigns, but sovereigns are countries. Now, different people define tiers differently, and I'm going to tell you how I understand it. The tiers are basically based on the size. Sovereigns would be called tier 1s. Usually it's whales. The extremely large sums of people with their currencies are usually referred to as tier 2s. And then tier 3s would probably be the private exchanges, what like myself and others are in. And then tier 4 is the publics. Now, that's my definition. There is nobody out there that gives you an official definition of this, because people use these terms, but they all have their own definitions. And I'm giving you the definitions as I understand it on that, okay? All right. Okay. Let's see. Another question. It says, I understand the primary sources of funds for the RVGC are in Asia. Why then is the exchange center located in the U.S.? And are there other exchange centers in any other parts of the world which non-U.S. residents can benefit from? Because the U.S. is the one who's driving this. They are the ones who are coordinating it. And the U.S. is the predominant place where all the funding comes through. And the U.S. are the ones who have organized this. You have to have the direct contacts with the funding sources. And no, I do not know of anywhere else in the private exchanges where you're going to be able to go in and exchange your currencies. And it says, are there other exchange centers in other parts of the world? No, I don't know of any. There might be, but I don't know of any in which non-U.S. residents can benefit. No. The private exchanges like mine, we don't care where you live. You can be anywhere in the world and to participate. It's just that they're conducted here. And then the question was would Trump's presidency affect or delay the GCR in any way, given his stand on China? The private exchanges have absolutely nothing to do with what is going on politically around the world. They're independent of the politics, unless the politics of a few specific individuals, such as President Obama, were stopping the process. This has nothing to do with what's going on in the politics in China. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the politics of Iraq or Vietnam. And it has very little to do with what's going on in the politics of the United States. It comes back to the power of a few individuals who had the ability to stop it or make it go forward. And we were told from our sources that Obama was always the one who was stopping this. And we have been told from our sources that Trump is very, very supportive. So on that. But private exchanges are independent, because they're not public. They have the ability to work in a private manner. Okay? Let's see. So let's go to the first caller. I'm going to an individual from area code 415. You are here on the call with Dave. What can I help you with tonight?
Yes, hello. How you doing, Dave? My name is Ramin. I'm somewhat new to your show. I heard about the motorcycle accident. I just want to say it's good that you're back, you're feeling better. And I hope, you get stronger and be healed as soon as possible. Thank you for giving me this chance to talk to you. I emailed you before. I signed up for the humanitarian project. I'm here in Tennessee right now, in the United States. But when I put the country, I put it in Egypt because I want to go back. I want to go to Egypt, even though right now I'm in the United States. And because I'm having problems. So first of all, I want to just a brief question about the workshop. And the second, which is more important to me, is the fact that I'm having intelligence services or somebody out there, people, let's say like a week or 2 weeks ago, my computer got hacked. And this, they want me to listen to a certain program. They went to my YouTube channel, because I have a YouTube channel. And it'd be nice one day I'd like to interview you too in my YouTube channel, because I interview people in my YouTube channel. they added a channel in my YouTube channel because I added channels, like I subscribe to these channels, and they subscribe. Somebody subscribed a channel without without me even like knowing, and I was like a little. I was not surprised, but it happened, and so I was wondering if you or Mr. M can help me and see who exactly is, trying to direct me to a certain direction or directions, I should say.
That's something you're going to have to bring in an IT person, and you're going to have to get that person yourself. And Mr. M does now not have the time to engage himself with individuals on that. I can tell you that right now. Because if you're dealing with some subscribers on your YouTube channel, you need to work that with YouTube or find an IT person who understands how that process works. Does that answer your question?
Do you know anybody that might be able to help me?
No, I don't. No. I'd start with YouTube. Give them a call. Give them a call, because I've got some questions about some of the subscribers as well. But you need to give them a call.
No. So somebody hacked in and added a channel, okay? Because I add certain channels. I subscribe to certain channels. So somebody, did that on my behalf without me knowing.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to know that. That's one example. And another example is like somebody wanted me to look at, did something to meet a certain program. And so it's like, I know there's certain difference in my life, and I need somebody to help me out with this.
Well, then I would call YouTube, because that's a YouTube issue, and I cannot answer that question for you.
Can you direct me to anybody who might be able to help me? Or something
I don't know anybody, and I already said that. I don't know anybody who can help you with that. You need to go to YouTube and start there.
No, because I'm talking about digital services, sir.
What's that?
I'm talking about digital services. I'm assuming there has to be digital services in this case.
I can't answer that for you. I cannot answer that for you, because part of it is a legal issue that you're dealing with YouTube, and I cannot be the one to give you advice on that.
It's not just all about YouTube. It's about like they have me. They made me want to look at a certain program, a different program show. So that's whole different issue. It's not just about YouTube. It's also out of YouTube. That's an example. So.
Yeah. I understand that, but you're asking me a lot of technical questions on YouTube on a program that has nothing to do with that, and I don't talk with that. Now, do you have any other questions that deals with what our program theme is?
Okay. Can you just say my number or try to call me some other time? Because I emailed you before, and today I got an email back, but it's more like a commercial thing, more than on a personal level.
I don't know. I don't even recall your email, because I don't know who your name is and what came through. And I get somewhere between 40 and 60 emails a day.
My name is Amin. My email account is Aminco, AMINCO 321@gmail.com.
Well, send me another email then, and I'll take a look at that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. Have a good evening. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to go to the next caller. His name is Larry, and he's from area code 516. Larry, you're on the air, and what can I help you with?
Hi, Dave. Let me get you off speakerphone. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I want to get you off. Come on. There you Okay. You'll be able to hear me better. I'm sorry, I'm in a very large room, and it's a huge echo.
Yeah, you're good.
Warehouse.
You're good.
And from what I understand in your preliminary talks before you took callers, am I to understand now from everything that I've heard from past shows and tonight that President Trump knows exactly what's going on with the private exchanges, is on board and wants this to go through?
That's my understanding. And here's part of I can tell you why. President Trump, in 3 weeks before the election, made 2 stops to do campaign rallies in Reno, Nevada. You don't go to Reno, Nevada to get votes. You don't even necessarily go into Nevada 2 weeks twice 2 and 3 weeks before the election to get votes. This is an electoral college system. I think Nevada only has 4 or 5 electoral college votes, and then Nevada was not going to be a state that was going to make or break his election. And if you're going to go into Nevada, you're going to go to Las Vegas, where 70 to 80% of the state's population is. 2 and 3 weeks before the election, Trump was making somewhere between 3 and 5 campaign stops per day. He would fly into a city, get off of his plane. Within a half hour, he's speaking to the crowd and to the group. When he's done, within an hour, he's back on his plane flying to another city. And he was stopping at 3 to 5 cities a day. Twice in the last 3 weeks before the election, he stopped in Reno, and his plane was on the ground for more than 8 hours both times. He went ahead and did a campaign rally while he was there, but you don't do that from strategic of a campaign. Everything we were being told is because he was going into Reno to basically finish out his own paperwork with his own dinar that he has to exchange. And that's what we were being told. And all the sources of information that I have saying he's very strongly behind this. He knows what it is, but he can't just dump it on us all of a sudden at once. It has to be strategically released as a process over a period of time. And it's back to what I just told you, is that there are 2 gentlemen that both, that I said that, my source, Mr. S, had talked with in a week before Trump was inaugurated about the logistics of moving into the gold standard, and because it's a part of all the currency exchange as well. So, and Mr. H is in the process of setting up another appointment, and I've been invited to join him and the team at that appointment as well. So.
Okay, and now I want to connect what you're saying to what Dr. Kohler. Of course, you know Dr. Kohler is the. Told you guess he was the trustee for the Rodriguez Trust?
Yes.
Okay. Going back to what he said, and I remember this, that when the bonds are monetized, that's how they get the money to hand out to wherever it's going. First, they have to be monetized. They monetize through the IMF. He made mention that those particular monetization had to take place, and there were people who were going to get, he named a list of who gets money before anybody else. He talked about the IMF, he talked about the U.S. government, and did he say the Pentagon?
I don't remember.
Am I correct in remember that?
I don't remember the details of that call, so I don't know.
But if it is, then wouldn't it be that we could also say that the government itself, will and Donald being the president right now, would be getting a lot of money probably to help. Well, are they going to help us with this huge deficit we have, and maybe to some of his programs?
My understanding is yes. What I'm hearing is that is a part of it. Is a part of this release is also a process that is basically going to totally pay off the debt of the United States. And I can only tell you what I'm hearing.
That would show everybody. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying I can tell you what I am hearing. Can I quantify that as an absolute? No, I cannot. But I can tell you that's what I'm hearing.
See,
Go ahead.
This is exactly what this country needs to start paying for some of these things, that they get the factories going, get more jobs going,
right.
Businesses, and everything. And if you can give money to the people, and then all of a sudden the government can also pay some of its own bills, I think that we'd be very well off here. And I think it'll make his presidency legitimized.
Yeah. So, yep, I agree. So, good. Anything else?
Oh, all right, that's it. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for everything you do.
Alrighty. Thanks a lot.
Some wonderful news tonight.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you. All right. Okay, I'm going to go to the next caller. Let's see. I thought I had shut that one off, and his name is Alan, and he's from area code 978. Alan, you're on the air. What can I help you with?
Hey, Dave. Alan here from Massachusetts. How are you tonight?
Doing fine.
So you and I met at the Boston seminar that you had like a year and a half ago. My question revolves around this new U.S. dollar that might be coming out that we keep hearing about in different venues. And I guess my question is, as the U.S. Federal Reserve dollar starts to lose value around the globe, which I guess is pretty obvious, and you keep hearing about the United States having to come out with a new Treasury dollar, not having to do anything to do with the Federal Reserve dollar, is that the currency that's going to come out that we should really be looking at when we go to exchange? And that's the dollars that we want to get, not the Federal Reserve dollars when it comes time to exchange it? I know you said this before, that a dollar is a dollar in the United States, but I'm not so sure I get that. So can you kind of break that down for me? Is there a new dollar coming out sooner than later?
Well, first of all, you're not paid in cash and currency. You're paid digital money that is money wired into your bank account. And a bank account doesn't know the difference if what the currency is. Now, I'm going to share with you what was shared with me from my sources in Hong Kong. Whether it's the Federal Reserve note or the TRN, at the retail level, at the level of you and me that's going to walk into a store and lay down a $10 bill, we don't care if it's FRN, TRN, or Monopoly money. All we wanted to do is spend like a dollar and we get our change back. That issue is not dependent upon a new currency, physical currency, of which only about 5 to 8% of our country's money supply is. It's not dependent upon that. It's what happens at the very, very top levels of the banking industry. It's what happens at the World Bank and at the IMF level. It's up there has the transition taken place between what is fiat-based currency versus asset-backed currencies. Because if at that level it's asset-backed, then it's trickling down all the way to us, because it has an effect on what is called the overall monetary policy and the value of the money. So at the end of the day, you and I are not necessarily waiting for a new paper currency to come out. It could happen. That is possible, but that is not what we are waiting for, because at the retail level, we don't care as long as it spends like a dollar. So what I've said is a dollar spends like a dollar inside the United States. Now, outside of the United States, if it's an FRN or TRN based dollar, yes, it could have a difference on its value, because they have to bring it into the United States to really get its value. An individual doesn't necessarily bring it in, but an individual, let's say in another country, goes and takes a U.S. physical currency, spends it, and it goes into that country's bank. Then that country's bank transfers it to the United States. So that's how money exchanges works on an international level. But the vast, vast, vast majority of the money does not happen in currency exchanges. It happens in digital currency. It happens in digital cash transactions, as money is money wired between bank account and bank account. So for you and me at the retail level, that is not a transition that's necessary for us to have the full experience of it. I think that will happen over a period of time, but it's not something that has to happen up front.
Right.
Does that make sense?
When the total global currency reset takes place,
what's that?
And if you look at Basel III requirements, isn't that where all currencies around the globe have to be 10% backed by some sort of asset, whether it's gold or whatever, country to country? Is that going to happen when the global currency reset happens?
I don't know. I hear when I say that, it's because there are so many different definitions of what has to happen, and the longer I am into this, I can't see those definitions being exact. There's a lot of different things that can take place, and I don't think hardly anybody knows that except the people at the very top who are going to be making the decision when they make it. I would not be looking. I would not be looking for external things to be the key factors that are going to make that decision, other than some of the decisions that are coming down from the president.
Right. So what do you see happening next? What's the next big event that's going to determine our future here?
I think it's back to those people that have been meeting with the president about the shift to the gold standard. I think that's one of the first things that has to happen on a public level. And Also, I think one of the other things that has to happen is that Trump's nominee for the new Treasury Secretary has to be sworn into office as well. If it's the guy that he is proposing and putting out there, he's a very strong advocate for getting rid of the Federal Reserve and going to the gold standard. You can clearly see that going to the gold standard is on Trump's agenda. But is there going to be opposition to it that's going to stop that? I don't know. There are some things he can do by executive order, so we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. You and I are involved in this on a very, in-depth level, but we forget that 95 to 98% of the people in this country have no idea what's going on. And so they can't just dump the change on there without it having a dramatic impact on the markets and other stuff like that. So, it's a process to me that's going to unfold over a period of time. And I don't know, I don't have a time frame on that. So, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate the answers to the question. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Folks, I'm going to go back to our friend Jason, who has his contacts in Reno. Jason, you're on the air. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing good. Anything new over in your territory?
Well, we definitely heard a couple things. And I wanted to actually bring those up to you and also pose a question or two to you.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. The earlier this week, we did get a report that the president had signed an executive order to basically make the exchange go. I have another contact who has a contact inside the White House, and he confirmed that happened, because I was kind of like, well, why does he have to sign an executive order to make it go? And so one of the things he said was he had to do that to basically 86 the executive order that Obama had signed to stop it. And I said, okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. But then he also said that his did tell him that he saw the executive order. So I asked him this today. I said, well, ask your contact, what did the executive order say? And see if he'll tell you. And he asked him, and he came back, and he basically said that the executive order said that everything in Reno is to be emptied by the next week. That seems a little far-fetched to me, but anyway, I just wondered, are you hearing anything like that?
I haven't. I'll probably know more in the next couple of days. I did talk with my guy in Reno 2 days ago that he's there physically. He's very much in touch with everything that's going on, and he has not heard anything. Here's my concern. Executive orders have to be filed with a registry, which is public information for them before they can actually be impacted and have the power and take effect. And so I'm wondering, where is this executive order in that process? Because an executive order, before it can be implemented, it has to be filed in the public registry. And when that happens is when it has the authority of its statement to take effect. So if he's saying he has seen the executive order, I would like to say, where is it in the public registry? And if it's not in the public registry, it does not have the full impact of law of a president's executive order, because any court or any judge could step in and say, it's not official. It didn't get registered. And they could throw the whole thing out in a heartbeat. Anybody could challenge it in court and throw it out if it hasn't been a part of the public registry. So
one could go and look the public registry up and get the answer to this question, right?
They should, because all executive orders are filed in the public registry. See, it's kind of like, gotcha. See, it's when the legislative process basically goes through the process of basically, creating a law. That's a matter of public record. You can go to the Library of Congress and you will see every bill that was voted on ever in the whole history of the United States. And that is all a matter of public record. And it is out there in the public for any bill that would be proposed to change the law, whether the bill passed or whether or not. All records of Congress's voting are all public records. And it's interesting how a lot of people talk about this NASARA law that's private and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I was a legislator for 12 years, and it works the same way in the states as it works in Congress. If that NASARA bill is not in the public registry, then it's not law. It's not. If it's not in the Library of Congress about the day that it was voted on and who passed it, then it's not law. And people can talk about it all they want, but I'll tell you one thing, a judge would throw it out in a heartbeat, and a judge would have the right to do that because it didn't go through the due process of how a law is made. And so there's a lot of people that talk about this NASARA law, and they said that it was passed in the House in March and it was passed by the Senate in September and then signed by the President. That's not law, because a bill has, once it passes the first chamber, either the House or Senate, it has so many days that it has to go to be executed and passed by the opposite chamber, and after that it has so many days that it has to go to be signed by the President. And those are matters of days. There is no such thing as a bill passed by one chamber, passed by another chamber 6 months later, because they've passed their deadlines of their own rules of operation. And so, if that bill was passed, it's in the Library of Congress somewhere. And I haven't heard anybody ever bring up the exact bill number that will tell you where this bill is in the Library of Congress. So, yeah. And this comes.
Did you hear that? Obama had possibly signed anything like that?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I had a couple other questions. That was kind of all I heard this week, which was, if it's in fact the case, it was fairly exciting.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't get moved by excitement much these days around this. I'm just kind of patiently waiting for it to take its place, knowing that we are a little small dot on a real big map as far as this is concerned. But I was going to ask you, the gold supply that they would be bringing in from Asia, would you have the same assumption that I do, in that if they do bring a whole bunch of new gold here, and that is announced, and now there's a new gold standard, don't you feel like that would create a bit of a drop in the market as far as the value of gold? Because now we're going to throw a tremendous amount of supply on the market.
Yes, it would. In my opinion, it would, because see, when gold was basically what backed up the currencies and assets, gold basically locked in, and the price didn't move for decades because it was not an investment item. It was an item that was used to back up assets of currency. When they came off the gold standard, gold moved from being an asset that backs up a country's currency to being an investment item and a hedge investment item. And that's why we have seen gold go from $35 an ounce to where it is today, about $1,200 an ounce or somewhere in there. And that's why its value is today. If it goes back to being an asset that is going to back up a currency, it may very well go back to what would be $35 an ounce plus inflation since the 1970s. And there's a possibility that because it's no longer used as a hedge investment item, so it loses its hedge investment value. And that's a possibility. Now, that's my opinion. That's how I look at it. But I can tell you right now, if you get three of us up here talking about what's going to happen, you're going to get three different opinions. But that's my opinion. That's how I'd say. Because you're taking a commodity that has a limited supply in the open public market, and you're now flooding that system with more of it. And when you do that, you devalue its value to do that. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
And it's interesting, too, because for the last 6 months to a year, everybody and their brother has been listening to the the TV, say that, buy gold, buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. And I mean, everybody I know is buying gold. And I've told them all, I said, you better sell your gold. When they tell you to buy it on TV, that's the time to be getting out of your position from a year ago. It's interesting to kind of see this all play out.
In a conventional marketplace and in a conventional world, yes, that is not bad advice. But that's a conventional marketplace in a conventional world that does not recognize that there's a shadow world out there with scores of trillions of dollars of gold that's available that's not on the public market. that may come into the public market. And see, they don't recognize the shadow world. And on this program, we do. We recognize that there's a shadow world out there of cabal that really runs and controls the world's money supply. And it has nothing to do, and that most of what happens on Wall Street is manipulated. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I got 2 more questions for you. Here we go.
Sure.
I know other people want to call in, so I don't want to take up all your time.
That's okay. We got lots of time tonight.
You mentioned a couple. You mentioned a couple times on the show that the possibility did exist, at least if not on our level, on a larger level, maybe a level above us, like a governmental level, that there may be some fallout economically. So with this announcement and the new gold and the possibility that we're going to be a part of this whole exchange process is paying off our country's debt and being out of debt, do you see the possibilities of that possible fall in our economic state as a country basically going away? And
No.
now we probably won't experience any of that?
Well, let me explain what I mean by if you might have thought that I said something of a fault. We might see what is called a V formation. Markets want certainty. And when you make this kind of announcement and when you dump this type of gold into the marketplace, it creates an uncertainty that they had not planned on or foreseen as a part of market valuations. And so when there's uncertainty, a lot of people will sell because they don't know what it's going to do, and they sell because they want to protect the asset value that they have now. And that creates an uncertainty, and it can create a very rapid drop. But once that settles and all the news sets in, it says, wait a minute, we're pumping trillions of dollars back into the marketplace that's going to be spent. So you see a spike up, a huge spike. And that is what is called a V formation. If you look at what happened after the markets opened right after 9/11, we had a huge V formation, huge, gigantic V formation, where the markets dropped for a day or two and then they settled and then spiked right back up over the next week. And it's possible that we could have something like this again with that. But the bottom line at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a strong market mover upward. It's just how much of a shock is it going to go through before it digests what's truly and really happening, because of people that don't understand what's taking place. Because you're going to be pumping trillions and trillions of dollars into the worldwide economy for infrastructure development. That does nothing but mean that companies are going to be making a lot of money and have a lot of profit. I think you're really going to see a strong jump in the infrastructure industry. Is where you would see it, in the international infrastructure industry, because there's a lot of money that's going to be poured into infrastructure development all around the world.
Yeah. Well, we're alive at an exciting time, bro.
Yeah. Okay.
Last question for you.
Sure.
I wouldn't be a good caller if I didn't ask this, and I think all your other callers will appreciate it. With everything that's taken place since last week's call, have you heard at all that anybody is getting paid?
No.
Like paymasters, anybody? Is there any money moving? Have you heard?
Well, there is somebody said that some paymasters gotten paid, but I have not had that, what I would call quantitatively confirmed. Other than that, no, not yet. But I have heard that from some very good sources that stuff is getting ready to shift and change. I think we'll have a different report by next week. That probably some things have moved. As of now, that's what I'm hearing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Dave, thanks for all you do.
Okay.
Good talking to you.
Thanks, Jason. All right. And again, I appreciate everything that you bring and all the news you bring. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. I'm going to go to a caller now from area code, let's see, 262. His name is Mark. Mark, you on the air? What can I help you with tonight?
Good evening, Dave.
Sure.
Dave, this question is in light of last week where you were talking about that most people that are giving out information are good people, but their sources maybe aren't as good. What do you think? For quite some time, I've been listening to Karen Hudis.
Mm-hmm.
And originally, I thought she was pretty credible just from her background to being in the World Bank and everything like that. Now, recently, she's been pretty much she's calling Trump illegitimate. And one thing she's always said, that anybody that talks about Asian families is nothing but a shill. So obviously that's a direct, hit on you. So what is your take on her? It doesn't sound like that she's on base with, obviously what you're saying. What would
Karen,
be your take on?
Karen has a professional background that can make her sound very credible, but what most people will not tell you is that Karen Hudes has a specific personal agenda, and she relates her information to benefit and make that benefit her personal agenda. And I think that for her to say that she doesn't know about dragon families tells me she's just ignorant. I mean, there you will find all of the credible sources that have these large sums of money know about the dragon families. They all do, and they know who they are. You can go back and you can look at the listing, and you can Google a term, what is called the white spiritual boy accounts, and it will list the accounts in over 3,000 banks around the country that receive this money from the Global Collateral Fund, and the Red Dragon family is listed in there as one of them. So for her, if she's going to, see, I think to a certain degree she reports from a conventional world and doesn't go as deep into the shadow world as she would like to. And she has a reason for that. But it's to her personal benefit, where and how she's going to get her money. And I think that's all I'm going to say about that. People can believe what they want to believe. But the very fact that she says that the dragon families don't exist means her and I are in different worlds.
So do you think there is something called, I think she refers to it as the global debt facility, where all this money and gold is supposed to be coming from, that's supposed to replace our currency at this point? Does that even exist? Or
in her terms, in her terms, it might exist, and I can, in my opinion, if it does, it's only a limited supply of the gold that is out there.
Okay.
Yeah. See, you have to understand why the dragon families are not talked about in the public. The dragon families and these three large trusts are not talked about in the public because of the fact that they don't want to be in the public. They've been quiet and private literally for decades and centuries, and they don't want to be talked about. And so there's very limited people that basically can talk about them. And I've been to Hong Kong 4 times and met with them personally. And I can tell you the people that I'm talking with right now works with them extensively and very deeply. And I talk almost once a week with a gentleman who is an administrator of one of the dragon families, and I've been to Hong Kong. I've met with him. He showed me where they meet and their offices and everything. So she can say what she wants to say, but I think she comes from a limited conventional perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you were asked before about I'm getting some feedback. Are you getting that?
No, I'm not now, but you might want to make sure that your volume is turned down on your radio or whatever you're listening to.
Okay.
Because your feedback would probably be coming from there.
You were talking about that you don't know of anybody getting paid. Now, when we go back to before Thanksgiving, you had made a statement that round 1 was going to be paid off by Thanksgiving. And then later on, you explained that there was a smoke screen.
Yes.
What exactly would have been the benefit of telling people that? What did that benefit the people that were telling you that? I never quite understood what the purpose was for the smoke screen.
Our sources were coming from very high sources, and the individual that I was getting mine from has a very, very high security clearance of source as well. And he began to realize the information that was being given to him was not correct, and it was lying and is deliberate disinformation. And we all stopped. And I have since corrected that and saying this information was found to be inaccurate and not correct. Because I report what I receive at the time of what's coming through from my sources. And he and I and others are really beginning to believe that there is some possible cabal involvement at the very top of some of these sources, and they're setting up what we would consider to be a possible trap.
Okay.
Because
So-
why is
so I
somebody
guess
from a very, very high source going to be deliberately lying to you for almost 2 to 3 months? And they were. And there has to be a reason for that.
Sure.
And these people that I get this information from are very credible, right at the very top. And yet the sources above them were giving them deliberate lying information for a couple months. And why would they do that? And what we've surmised is, and I'm not the only one who's on board with this, there's some of my other very good sources are on board with this as well. We think there's a potential of a cabal trap that's out there, and that's why they've been feeding this information to entrap people.
Well, I guess once you get to speak directly with Trump, we don't have to worry about disinformation anymore.
I hope not, but
Yeah.
he's the master at the art of negotiation, so, and he'll play both sides to his benefit to win the deal. So you never know. He's a master at that.
Sure.
He's a master at playing both sides
Sure.
to win the deal. And I don't say that in a derogatory manner. I say that as a matter of compliment. He's very good at that. So, yeah. Okay?
Sure. Okay, well, just one more thing. I had asked Blanca that when I was on the phone with her, I asked her, I said, if Jason would be willing to talk to me in private, I asked her if she would just ask him that and give her my phone number, and then she said I should mention that to you on the air.
I do not give out anybody's private information or phone numbers unless they give me permission to do so. And Jason is listening.
Well, that's why
I know.
Okay.
What I would do is send me an email, and Jason is listening. That's up to him, and he's going to have to contact me first and let me know that he's willing to talk with you. But and I will be a middle ground on that. But I am not going to set myself up for 100 people to say they want to talk with him, and I will not do that.
Right.
I do not bring people on the air so that I can be an intermediary and refer 100 people to them individually. I do not have that time to do that, folks. So don't think this is going to happen on a regular basis, because it's not. If people come on the air and you want, if I have people that come on the air and you want to talk with them, it's your business and your responsibility to get in touch with them. Don't expect me to do that for you.
Okay.
Okay?
So,
All right.
understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, thanks. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, next I'm going to a gentleman by the name of Jim from area code 859. Jim, you're on the air. What can I help you with tonight?
Good evening, Dave. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. I can hear Blanc much clearer than I can hear you. So I don't know. It's been that way on every program. I had a couple of friends who attended your seminar over the weekend in Fort Worth. They enjoyed it. My history with this fund, in 2014, I bought my dong. Several months later, we joined a private group. Summer of 15, they sent us papers, send their money in. We had about a week to do that. They were going to count it and have it ready to go in a few weeks, they said. Of course, that didn't happen. Last summer of summer 16, they sent more papers to update our information and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And all along, I've been listening to you and to other people informally about it's going to be coming. You ought to have it by a certain date or so forth. And of course, that never came. So hopefully, what we've got going now, and what you've reported tonight, will have some substance to it. When we first joined and we came out with private groups 2 years ago, there was nothing about anything about which might interfere with getting it and so forth. And you came on with the ambassador and whatever, and it seems that it has ballooned into quite a complicated situation where earlier with our private groups, that was never mentioned. So I guess my question is, hopefully the information that you're passing on to us now will be
fruitful and within the next, couple of months.
I have said for almost a year to 2 years now, nothing happens until the system is safe. I don't care what anybody else is saying. Nothing happens until the banking system is safe to move the money. And I know the sources that you're talking about, and they've kind of said the same thing. And the reason some of those were saying that it was coming earlier because they had assumed that the banking system was safe, and and new information came out later that it's not. And it has not been. The banking system, when you're going to start talking about moving scores of millions of dollars into individuals' accounts, there are people that could hack in and steal that from you, and you would have no recourse. None whatsoever. And that's why they will not move this money until that system is safe. That's the bottom line of all of it. And what I'm being told is it's well on its way. It's in its process. I cannot give you dates because I don't know. And I am also beginning to hear that what they will do in the very beginning is that they will test using some of the smaller private exchanges to release funds into them, to use them. I don't want to use the term guinea pigs, but they're going to be the testers to see that the system is safe. And that's why this is not going to all be dumped on us at one time. It's going to be phased in over a process and a period of time. And they are going to use some of the very small private exchanges first to use those as tests to see if the system is going to be safe and it's going to hold up. That's how it's being explained to me.
Yes. Well, I had thought about that myself. Put money in a number of people's accounts, a small amount of money, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And of course, it could be lost. It could work well.
Well, you have a banking system right now that is not hack-proof. I mean, you can get professional hackers that can hack into bank accounts and steal the money. And that's what they need to make sure that they have a system that's basically safe before, hackers don't care about hacking into your account and my account because we're peanuts, we're nothing. But they do have had the ability to steal money, large sums of money, millions of dollars off the money wires as it moves across the wires. Now try doing that and all of a sudden you're starting to move 10, 20, 30,000 people, millions of dollars across these money wires. The hackers are going to have a heyday. And they will do it. They'll do it as long as the system allows them to do it. And that's what we're waiting for. And I don't know how long that's going to take.
Well, I live in an area that's about 200 miles from the nearest Wells Fargo bank, which, of course, I have a very small account there now. Mm-hmm. And I would have to travel by car, I think, to get there instead of trying to do it over the internet.
Doesn't make any difference what bank or where the bank is located. You can be anywhere in the world and hack into a bank account with a computer. Anywhere. Doesn't make any difference where your bank is or what bank it is.
Yes, I know that, but I would feel more secure rather than transferring those funds from that bank to my banks where I live.
Yeah.
That I would go and do it personally and get hopefully checks small enough that I can bring with me back home and put in my bank without going across the internet.
As soon as you put it in your bank and back at home, you've triggered the fact that you now have millions of dollars in your account. You see it. You can go get a cashier's check from a Wells Fargo bank and put it in your personal bank, and then what happens is it triggers when it says, "Oh, this account just got millions of dollars it never had before." That's the key that triggers it. Lets all these hackers know. It doesn't make any difference where your bank account is if they can access that, because they can set up computer programs that will give them those triggers and notices.
Now, you had talked before about having a business account, that it's safer than having a personal bank account.
Absolutely.
Is that correct again?
Absolutely. Because here's why. There are some people that aren't necessarily hackers, but they do have the ability to tap in and watch some of these accounts. And they will, if you're putting your money into a personal account They will look at you as being someone who is stupid enough that doesn't know the difference between a business account and a personal account, and those are the people that they will go after first, because they're saying these people have absolutely no idea what they're doing with their money, and if they're stupid enough to put $1 million into a personal account, let's go get it, because they will look at you as not having the savvy of understanding business operations to be able to put this kind of money in a personal account. If you're putting it into a personal account, make yourself a red target and get out there with the red target and say, come and get me, because you'll be the first ones they'll go after.
Well, I guess the thing to do is to open a business account.
Yes, I would. Minimally, an LLC account.
Right.
Minimally. Because remember, what they're looking at is, I come back to that book that I referred to you guys, which was called The Sudden Wealth Syndrome. And the Sudden Wealth Syndrome talks about the importance of setting up a business account and to never, ever put this kind of wealth into a personal account. Because what it shows is you don't understand how to do business. You don't understand how millionaires work their money. And it shows you that you are ignorant to the process. And because if they see you as being ignorant to the process, they see you as a pawn to go and pluck and pick and take their money. I'm serious when I say that.
By the way, we enjoyed going to Sedona when we did our travels out west about 1.5 years ago, and my wife loved your quiet community and so forth. It was in the summertime, and it was very pleasant.
Sure. Well, Sedona is always, to me, it's always a wonderful, beautiful time, regardless of the time of the year. So, yeah, good. Anything else, Jim? Anything else I can help you with?
That'll be fine, Dave.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right.
All right, okay. Have a good evening. Okay. Okay, the next one, I'm going to go to a lady by the name of Marilyn from area code 781. Marilyn, you're on the air. What can I help you with tonight?
Hey, Dave, can you hear me? I don't want to have an echo.
No, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, great. A few questions here. Number one, what constitutes a whale?
Whales are extremely large. They are people that have very, very high, large sums of currency. And you're talking in the billions. In the billions.
In the billions?
Yes.
Got to be in the billions?
I don't know where the dividing line is, but I can tell you almost all whales have it in the billions, personally.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
And then the internet group being on a list. We're on your list, but before that we were on General 64, which then I think got amalgamated into the Admiral group. But we didn't have to send funds in. So, do you think that would constitute that we're just public then, or?
I would think so. If you're going to go back to based on what the guy who posted today, and he went by the term of over and out, and based on what I understand, if you have not already turned your currency in with a private group already, you're going to be a part of the public exchange. And that's how I see it and how it's been explained to me.
However, with you did not ask us to send money in, correct?
Not yet. And I can tell you that based on what my sources tell me from those 3 large trusts, that my list will be an exception to that.
Meaning what? What do you mean?
Is that the large sources of the trust are going to fund the people on my list as an exception to coming in later in the round 2. Is that because round 1 gets funded first. And the first part of round 1 is all the private exchange funding. And then when that is done, that they will go into funding people at the public exchange, i.e. people who are going to use the 800 number system. And basically what the guy over and out said today, and I agree with this, and I've talked about this in the past, that those people are going to get a very, very low rate. Very low rate. But yet, I have been told by all 3 of these large trusts, he says, you are what we've been looking for. You are clearly communicating with your people that we're not here to make them be extremely rich and give them millions of dollars. We're here for project funding first and foremost. And that I've been very clear about that, and that, but yet people have the opportunity to do very well for themselves professionally, and that everything that's going to be involved with me in the second round is going to be that 20-80 split. You only get to keep 20% of it personally for yourself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And the rest goes to project
Peter
funding.
has a question. I have a couple more too.
Sure.
Oh, okay. The other thing is, Dave, are you familiar with CMKX Diamonds?
Yes, I am.
Of course, you're familiar then that the letter came out Christmas Day that once the world money situation was, I guess, set, I think the RV, in other words, that payout would go forth. Have you heard anything about that? Or
No,
is
because
that referring to the public?
Well, I am familiar with them. I do not follow them. I am not involved with it, and I do not make any comments on it because I'm then getting into a legal issue with an organized professional group that it's best for me not to comment on it. That's up to the people that are in that group, and that's their business because I have nothing to do with that.
And how long, getting back to the executive orders you mentioned earlier, how long does it usually take to register those?
It can be done the same day the president signs it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So we could go look for it then.
Yeah.
Okay, and one more question for me: a business account, is that the same as a trust account?
No, but a trust is actually better than a business account. A trust can be placed inside of a checking account, and usually want a trust to be a part of a business account. But the trust gives you much more and better, stronger parameters of how the money can be used, and also so you don't have to pay as many taxes on it if it's going to be taxable. I'd highly recommend a trust, but not everybody understands trust because trust can be a little bit complicated.
Well, we have a pure trust set up. And I wasn't sure if that was sort of equivalent to a business account, like you were mentioning.
Well, you need to ask for professional financial advice on that because I don't know your specific situation, so it's hard for me to comment on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have Peter here's grabbing his phone for one question, Dave, and then we'll get...
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you had a definition of a whale.
Yeah.
I guess that makes me a tadpole.
So.
And as a tadpole, we have a significant amount. Okay, let's put it that way. Now, I have some very, very large projects. Okay, I'm fortunate enough to be working with directed from above and working with Archangel Raphael. Okay, he's been with me for 19 and a half years. He only made himself known to me about 2.5 years ago, and since that time, the projects I have, let's put it this way, we've been paying it forward now for close to 20 years, okay, on our own money, never a dime for anybody else. So with the money that we're expecting to get, we expect to be able to do a lot more than we did before, right, naturally. And to that end, I'm taking on an extremely large project. I won't go over into detail on it right moment. It concerns Africa and Asia. And based on that, I obtained a lot more of the currencies because I figured I need it. And then when they came out with the information that, well, if you got these projects, which, you can get a much higher rate, okay? And based on that, I've been told, for America First, to work, I'm going to have to hire approximately 351 people in the next 2 years. So you can see have that many people working is obviously going to be many, many large projects. So my question is, are you going to be able to arrange for a lot higher rates because we have these projects?
I can't give you an absolute answer on that because every contract is different. And it depends on what's happening at the moment in time. I think it's going to depend on how much money has been released out into the public because I'm an adamant believer that there's only so much money that they're going to release for currency exchanges so that they don't flood the world with too much money all at once that generates a hyperinflation globally. And so it depends on where you are in the process. It depends on where you are in the line. It depends on the sources of your funding. And that's why I come back and I say you better know the sources of your funding if you're expecting on that much money. If you don't have a very, very good, deep confirmation that the sources of your funding are going to do that for you, then I would be a little concerned. Because this is not a slam.
It depends on. Go ahead.
This is not a slam dunk deal where everybody thinks they're just going to be able to walk in and get money, even if for projects. There's limited amount of money that's going to come from these sources of funds to put into the global economy. They're not going to blow up the world economy because 1 or 2% of us are trading these currencies to fund projects. That's totally counterproductive. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, there is a possibility.
Opened our ministry 2 years ago and did our trust, with the idea before we even heard about these so-called much higher rates if you have, projects. We opened a pure trust, and we had already dedicated 85% of what we would get to that fund, to the ministry. Okay, so as you know, if you have that, your funds are to be used certain ways, and they're no longer considered your personal funds, I was saying. So that was done over 2 years ago. Okay, before they even talked about these big numbers, and in my understanding, the whole idea of this 50-year payout is in order for them to be able to generate the funds to pay for that. But that alone brings it down to a situation where, shall I take it now at the regular rate, whatever the international rate's going to be, or shall I do it over a period of time?
Okay, now I'm going to come back and ask you the question.
Go ahead.
Have you already turned in your currencies?
Sorry?
Have you already turned your currencies into a broker?
No, we were told to do that we were told that might have to happen about 2 years ago now, maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
But have you done it? Have you done it?
64 or I forget which it was. Apparently they were supposed to be all amalgamated into one group. And we made inquiries, we never got any answers. We were told we were in the group, and that's the last we ever heard of it.
Then we found your group.
And then we found your group.
Then if you have not already turned in your currencies, then I would not count on getting high rates.
When is he going to...
Because here's the reality. If you haven't turned your currencies in already, you're at the bottom of the list. And there's only so much money that's going to be put into place out there.
So, Dave, we're on your list, and when the time comes, you said you'd be asking.
Okay, now that's difference, and that is the difference if you're on my list, because again, it's back what I said earlier. I have had direct contact with these 3 very large trusts, and they have said that they're treating my list differently than everything else. I'm referring to what is called a public exchange. If you are not, I wouldn't count. Now I'm giving you my opinion when I say this. Okay. I wouldn't count on anything in the General 64 group. I'm on that group. I'm on that list, and I haven't heard from anybody from them from well over a year. And I don't think they're just going to all of a sudden show up and say, "Oh, hey, come on in and let's take your." Remember, the list was turned over to Wells Fargo Bank, and Wells Fargo Bank doesn't do this for you. They do it for them to make money, and they're going to keep everything that they can and just be flipping your money. In so many words, if you're going to turn it in through that list, and you're not going to get a very high rate there. Because they have no incentive, because they know that they're only going to be given so much money to put out there. See, so.
But my question, and I know you have to get to other callers, is when do you think you'll be looking for people to send the money who are on your list and the funds in for you to...
I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't have any. I think it should be within. Remember, what I've said is round 1 has to be funded first. And round 1 doesn't get funded until the system is safe. Round 1 has to be funded, and once they're done funding that, then you can expect me to be starting the process about 2 months after that.
Wow. And round 1 being the tier...
round 1 being the higher tiers. Round 1 being the sovereigns, the whales, and those that have already turned in their currencies on private exchanges. That's round 1.
Wow.
Yeah. And that has to finish before they're going to move forward with anything else.
Okay, appreciate your
Good time. Thank you so much.
Okay,
We love
alrighty.
the calls, and we'll let someone else.
All right, thanks. Okay, all right. Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to the next caller. His name is Jake from area code 702. Jake, you're on the air. What can I help you with tonight?
Yeah. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Couple of quick questions. And one of them just came up on another caller, which is, 2 or 3 times now we've been...
Jake, you've got a lot of screeching and you're very scratchy. You need to get a better contact, okay?
To funding the private exchanges. Dave?
Jake, you're coming through very scratchy and a lot of background interference. So you've got to get yourself in a better position. You're not coming through clear.
Oh, okay. How are we now?
It's not good. You've got some... You either need to turn your background information off or you need to get a better connection if you're talking on a phone directly.
All right. Yeah, Dave, let's try for a quick question. A
Okay.
couple of times before we were really close, and that was before there was any talk of moving it to a gold standard prior to the exchange for the privates. What has changed in regard to that?
I can't give you an exact definition because back to what I said, nothing happens until it's safe. Nothing happens until it's safe. And that's not done yet. That's all I can say.
I got it, but that wasn't specific to it being on a gold standard.
No, it's not.
On a gold standard, or it was.
No, it's not.
Okay. The other question that I had was, since Reno, your sources that you're talking to, everything Trump has done, he has done so quickly. So, literally almost instantaneously. And so, do you regard this as different than any of the rest? Because I know you had mentioned even before that when things happen, they will happen extremely fast once the decision is made. Do you still view that as correct?
It all depends on what it is that's happening and what the level of the involvement is. Some things can happen quickly and other things can be phased in over a period of time. Don't expect this to be dumped on the world gigantically overnight. I just don't think that's going to happen at all because it creates too much chaos and confusion all around the world in the markets. Okay?
So once we have the confirmation...
Jake, you need to improve your connection. It's really bad and it's really scratchy and scrapey to people, okay? You need to improve your connection or I'm going to need to let you go.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Okay, already. And I'm sorry, okay? Thank you, Jake.
No problem.
Okay, and folks, thank you for understanding. And I wish I could have had that, but I could tell that it was very, very scratchy and scratchy and almost hurting some people's ears. And so I don't know why that was happening on his end, but I hope I was able to get most of his questions. Okay, I'm going to the next caller. Her name is Diane, and she's from area code 303. It's coming up. Let me see. Diane, you're on the air. What can I help you with tonight?
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Glad to see you that you're back in the saddle again.
Yep, doing fine.
Anyway, good. I am confused. Can you hear me okay? And am I coming through clearly?
You're coming through great to me.
Okay. I was confused. I entered the program about 19 after 7, my time, which was, a little bit after 6 your time. But anyway, I didn't start from the beginning. So when I entered in, I got confused. You were talking about how the people who hadn't submitted their money might not get, you were discussing about something about they may not be paid. You were referring to an article that you had read, and I don't remember the gentleman's name. So I'm confused about that. We're still on, correct?
You are. Now,
if we're on your list.
yes, if you're on my list. Now, here's the issues. There's clearly a difference between what is called the public exchange and the private exchange, and then my list is separate from that. My list is considered a part of the private exchange. You are in a private contract with a source of funding that's going to come through, but yet, now, I don't know everything that's going on there. I can only tell you what I'm being told, but I am being told from the funding sources is that I will probably be the only private exchange opportunity after round one is completed, because nobody else, they aren't going to fund anybody else.
Whoa.
See,
That's pretty exclusive then. Okay, yeah. I think we're still, even though we're going to be giving up 80% of our funds, I think that's 20 is still going to be pretty large.
it can be.
Don't you? I mean,
you could adequately live on it very comfortably for the rest of your life, you and your whole family, and never have to worry about another penny for the rest of your life, with even the 20%.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it, but I just, I'm kind of double checking.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that you've clarified the confusion. Do you know when you're coming to Denver?
Nope. Probably sometime late spring, early summer. I'll be in Denver.
Well, that would be smart, because then you won't be here. It won't be like you were last time.
Yeah, when I got hit by the snow.
And it was so cold.
Yeah, I was there in the snow. I think I was there in January, February last time. So.
March, I think.
Yeah.
I thought it was March. Okay. All right, well, let me let you go so you can move on to the next person. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Okay, appreciate it. Okay.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to the next caller from area code 978. Alan, did I have you on before? I don't know, but I had a guy with, I think, the same name, with the same comment. But here you are. Okay.
Yeah, I came back in for another question, Dave.
Okay,
and
all right.
I've been listening all night, and I have two questions. You keep saying that this could move forward when the banking system becomes safe. So I guess I've heard of two types of wire transfers, the SWIFT and the CHIP system, and I've recently heard about this new blockchain system. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out what the banking system definition of safe is, because it's become really important, I guess, to everybody in this situation. What does safe mean? And do you know about this blockchain wire transfer situation? I guess it's a whole new level, way above SWIFT and CHIPS. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know about block wire, but I would define safe means that a hacker can't come in and steal your money.
Yeah, I guess blockchain is the newest and the greatest, solution to safe.
Well, I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to my interview with Mr. M a few weeks ago, because he was a part of a team that started shortly after 9/11 of developing a complete new banking system that was safe. They were ready to fully implement that 4 years ago, and it got blocked by the cabal, and it's been blocked ever since. They have a system that's hack-proof, but they haven't been.
He made reference to the blockchain.
I don't remember. He might have, but
he might.
If that's a concern of yours, I would encourage you to go back and listen to his interview from about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Well, it's not necessarily a concern. It's just maybe an expectation, because I guess we're all anticipating when we'll get to that safe situation, because we're all just waiting, and I guess we're in great anticipation. I guess the second question, and then I'll let you go because it's my second round here, is when you see the green light, and I mean, when I say the green light, I mean the green light for us, your group, do you see that happening simultaneously to the quote-unquote public exchange? And the reason I ask that question is because you've made reference to the fact that it might take a while for you to set up your group, because there's a lot of work to it, and I understand that. But at the same time, maybe you could go to the bank and exchange a small amount of cash just to free up some money so that you have some spending money while you wait for your exchange group to go through. Do you have any feel for what will be public and what will be your group and the timing of those two things? Maybe it's a question you don't know the answer to, but I thought I'd ask it anyway.
I don't have an exact answer on that, but I can tell you what's being communicated to me from my sources is the rates are going to be so astronomically different that, yeah, you could possibly go ahead and go into, and I don't see you going in publicly into a bank and just walking in. I think you're still going to have to use the 800 number system in the processing centers. But, you know, I could be wrong on this. I don't have all the exact answers. There's some people that think they do, but I can tell you the people that think they do, they have never, ever been able to declare where their source of money is coming from. Never. And you've heard me say...
I don't think anybody has all the answers, to be honest with you. I think
and they don't.
Very gray.
Well, I think there is a couple people that do, but I don't have direct access to them. And my information is getting much, much more clear about the sources that I have. And but I'm beginning to think this is not... You have to remember, the cabal is going to do everything they can to stop this. They aren't just going to roll over and die and let multimillionaires and billionaires come onto the scene and join their elite club. They will never, ever do that. They would crash the whole system before they would allow that to happen. To allow people just to walk into a bank, exchange currencies, and all of a sudden they're part of the global elite 1%, they would never do that. And there's people out there that think that's going to happen for them.
But if you listen to Benjamin Fulford, he almost makes reference to the fact that the cabal is pretty well under control and on their way out. But
and Ben's been wrong a lot, too. He's been wrong a lot. Ben, you listen to Ben Fulford, he doesn't think this RVGCR is going to happen and you and I are going to get anything.
Yeah, I suppose. And then you listen to what he has to say about what's going on down in Argentina, and that's a whole nother subject. What do you think?
Well, that's a completely different topic in a different world, and I'm reading what others are reading, and so it's probably not best for me to comment on it because I haven't followed it that closely because I really wouldn't be able to make what I would call a reasonable, knowledgeable comment on that.
Yeah, I understand perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for all that you do. Let's just hope that we're getting closer and things are moving faster. I certainly feel that way, and I hope you do too.
Okay, thanks. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to area code 347 with the gentleman by the name of Alston. You're on the air, and what can I help you with?
Hey, good evening. I have two quick questions.
Sure.
After the list is closed, will there still be opportunity to send the dong in? And two, can this money be loaned to governments?
After what list is closed? Which list are you referring to?
Where you're taking people for the humanitarian funds.
Well, it depends on which list it is that you're referring to. If you're referring to my list,
your list, yes.
I don't know. I don't have an exact answer on that. I would assume that if you're on my list, and if there comes a point in time that I have to close the list, you would always be able to go out and get currencies until it comes time to turn it in. But I cannot guarantee that because every contract is different, and I don't have those contract specifications at this time. Okay.
And can this money be loaned to governments?
Can it be what? To governments?
Loaned.
Can it be loaned to governments? Well, I'm going to come back.
Yes, that's right.
Why would you and I loan money to governments?
Well, to help them with their foreign exchange balance of payments.
Well, I'm still not following your question because I don't know why individuals loan money to governments. Governments don't borrow money from individuals. They borrow money from the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, alrighty, thanks. Okay.
Bye.
Okay, good night. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to a lady by the name of Terry, and I hit the wrong one there. Okay, it kind of skipped on me right there. Hold on just a second. Now I'm there. Going to the lady by the name of Terry from area code 760. You're on the air, and what can I help you with tonight?
Hi, Dave. I wanted to know if there was any more confirmation about Trump being on board since those Reno visits in the campaign.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier on the program when I had these two gentlemen that met with him a week before the inauguration, and they discussed the logistics and specifics of moving to the gold standard.
You know what? I saw that in your newsletter. I missed the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Probably I'll re-listen to it then.
Yeah. After the recording comes up, go back and listen to the first couple of minutes, because I had some my contact, Mr. M, has talked with a gentleman that I call Mr. S and Mr. H, and Mr. H is over a 20-year personal friend with President Trump, and he met with President Trump about a week before the inauguration at his home there in Florida when they had the big party, and they specifically talked about the logistics of moving to the gold standard. And my contact in Mr. S has had talked with two people that have personally met with him, and Mr. H is in the process of setting up another appointment with the president, with President Trump, and our team is being invited to meet with him, and I am being invited to be in that meeting with the president. And I don't have any dates or times yet, but that's what I was told last night and this morning. So,
Does the gold standard automatically relate to the reval? Is he talking about the reval as well?
I don't know what he said in that conversation, and I don't have any of those details, but I would assume it will be, yes.
You're saying yes?
I'm assuming it's yes. I don't have that as hard factual information.
And because there's all this money that is going to be needed for infrastructure and everything like that, would that be able to help the cause, so to speak?
I think it is, because, and if you go back and listen to his inauguration speech, and this comes from my 12 years of being in public office as an elected official and almost my 25 to 30 years of being around political campaigns. He made, if you're looking at what I would call a conventional world, he made some very egregious statements. He made some statements that normally I would be saying, where's he getting all the money for that? That money isn't in the budget, and you're not going to get that kind of money from tax cuts and business improvements to pay for everything that he is talking about. Because what he is talking about is going to cost a lot of money. And in a normal conventional world, I would say, this guy is just shooting the wind, because he knows that kind of money doesn't exist for what he talks about or what he wants to do. But if he has solid information about a shift and a change in this money that's going to be coming forward and moving to the gold standard in the RV, then it's very, very probable for that money to be there to pay for everything he talked about. And he's not a stupid man. Trump's not a stupid man, and I don't think he would be going out there. Now, the media is attacking him because they think he's stupid, because the media is coming from a conventional world. And the media doesn't want to admit that there's other shadow world that's existing out there and where all this other money is. And so that he's talking about having to come up with the government coming up with a lot of money for what he talked about. And I think it's because he knows that this stuff is going to come forward.
Absolutely. And also, because he's doing everything, many things. One thing is blending into another. It would be a good time, I was thinking, to get the reval in then move on to the next thing. Would this be known publicly, or would this just be sort of one more order that sort of goes into a general thinking,
Well, all of his presidential orders, executive orders, become public information. The question is, how much attention is it going to get through the media? That's the question. But all of his executive orders are a matter of public record. And that's by law. He has to do that.
The way it would be worded, or how it would be.
Yeah.
The fact that the fact that TPP is being shut down, is that good for the reval or not? I thought it was good for the reval to have TPP. I'm not positive on that.
Well, it's good for the economy of the United States, in my opinion, because how I understand the TTP is that you were going to basically have corporations making a lot of money at the expense of the people with the TPP. It was not good for the workers of America, for the middle class people. It was an anti-middle class act about empowering powerful people and powerful corporations. They were the ones that were going to benefit from that. And that's how I understood it, and that's why I haven't supported it.
How does it affect Vietnam? How
What's
does
that?
It affect Vietnam and reval?
I don't know. I don't know those specifics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Alrighty. Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Blanca, I think that's all the callers that I saw that had any comments, unless you see somebody else. There was a new person that just came on that there's a little hand up flag there, but I haven't seen you screen them yet. Do you have any comments on that, Blanca?
Yeah. No. They must have just popped up. I don't know if you want to go ahead and get that, or...
I'll just go right straight to him, okay?
Minutes.
Yeah, I got about 6.5 minutes left. Okay, I'm going to go to this caller that just came in from area code 270. Hello there, caller to area code 270. You're here on the air with Dave. What can I help you with?
Hey, what's up, Dave? It's Dave. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
Yeah, I know you know the voice.
Yes, I do.
We've met 3 times at your conventions.
Yes.
All awesome.
I know. How are you?
I enjoy them very much.
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great, sir. I'm great. My question is, what happens if round 1 is funded and then that 2 months process, maybe 3, that you said we're waiting while you get the logistics ready, the people that funded round 1 turn around and say that there's too much money flooded into the worldwide currency system? Is it possible that they can shut it down for your round?
I don't think that
people in your group.
I don't think they will, because remember, my list is not that gigantic and huge, and the people on my list are going to be under that 2080 proposal, and they aren't going to get that much cash to spend immediately, and project funding will take some time before all of it begins to be dispersed.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
great.
I don't anticipate that as a
Kind of
problem.
popped in my head when I was listening to everybody talk. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what happens if round 1 dumps trillions of dollars into the system and someone says, oh, there's too much currency floating around. Let's not do Dave's 10,000 people or whatever. So, yeah, I understand.
No, I've been told no, that it'd be fine because my list isn't that large in contrast to the whole thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, brother, and thank you for always answering my text and emails,
Great.
sir.
Thanks,
you.
Dave. All right.
And
Okay.
We pray for your safety, and I'm glad you're recovering from your motorcycle accident.
Thanks.
Very well. Thank
Okay. All right. Have a good evening. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, brother. Bye.
Okay. Okay, Wanda. Blanca. I'm sorry. I think that's everybody. I was getting you mixed up with someone else I talked with earlier today. So, anything else you want to add to this?
Well, I think the very good questions, and because sometimes I'm behind the scenes screening, I don't know if you. Well, I didn't hear your answers. Let's put it that way. But what I seem to pick up is that there was some confusion about the announcement of private versus public because your list hasn't turned their funds in yet.
Right.
And so if you just want to articulate one more that why your group is different, that would be good to end.
I'm basically commenting from a post that was put out today by a gentleman who goes by the name Over and Out, and he is basically saying that if you are not already a part of a group where you've already turned in your currencies, that you're going to be a part of the public exchange. And I would define those that have already turned in their currencies as a part of the private exchanges, and everything else is going to be public. But my list is an exception based on my sources, is that I am a part of the private exchange. They will get the higher private rates, but I'm going to come later than everybody else.
Very good. And that was several people had that question.
Yeah.
And so even though your list has not turned in their funds yet, based on the folks that you've been talking to that are saying they would fund your group, that they would be treated under the private exchange.
Right. Yeah, and that's what they've communicated to me. So, okay.
As a round 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, yes.
All righty. Anything else in this fine evening of January 25th?
I think it was a boatload of news is what we'd have to say, and very good news. And I just encourage everyone on your list to keep on doing their inner work and to know that this is something that's going to be very good for us, but also very good for many, many people. So if we reflect on that and keep our vibration and thoughts high, we are going to see this come through, is all I want to encourage folks.
I agree. And as always, Blanca, thank you so much. You're always very, very well appreciated. You always do such a wonderful job, and I'm very appreciative and thankful that you're here with us on this program. So, okay, good.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Thank you. I think we all have a lot of appreciation for each other. The folks really love you, Dave, and appreciate you. And I know you really love the audience. And so let's keep on sharing the love, sharing the positivity, and let's, take
90 seconds.
Some very wonderful things happen, despite all the noise that's going on.
Yeah, I know. It was interesting. I really experienced that this weekend because, Saturday morning rolled around, and I was tired, and I was kind of a little bit kind of spacey and lightheaded, from, the accident. And I was just amazed because I started going, and within about 45 minutes, all of a sudden, I could just feel the energy coming in from the people because I was normal.
Right.
I was normal. I was clear. I was cognizant. I was coherent. And I went through the whole day as though absolutely nothing had happened to me. And I just knew it was the energy that was coming in from the people. And after the workshop was at the end of the day, 2 hours later, I just crashed. and I experienced the same exact thing on Sunday night when I was at the potluck. I was tired, when I started, and I'm experiencing the same thing tonight at the radio station at the beginning of the program tonight. I was a little bit tired, but it's the energy that comes from all the people that I know that is feeding us. So, well, we're down to 30 seconds left, so I guess it's time to call it a night, right?
That's right, Dave.
Okay.
Get your rest.
Good. See you next week. Thank you very much. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week. And remember, next week I'm going to have Mr. M on the program, okay? Love all of you. Have a wonderful week. Okay, good night.
10 seconds. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.